Hello, it's disappeared quickly, that intro, as it always does. We've been watching with David Stevenson and Claire Woodward, and we're back by royal command, I
I
think, aren't we,
definitely
Claire?
think I think the Royals would want us to do this, David. Very much so. Very much so.
Be- Because we have a new product from the studios of Harry and Meghan,
Yeah.
and it's not doing very well. I just glanced at the ratings here on IMDb, 2.4 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, 33%. You can't
Actually,
get much
I'm going to
worse than that.
correct you there, David. It should be, according to Meghan, it should be rotten heritage tomatoes because she believes in organic homegrown produce.
She'd have them lightly stewed and then put in a frittata, I
Or a
suppose.
quiche. I think she makes a quiche with heritage rotten tomatoes, not rotten tomatoes, but yeah. And it's number
And
6 on Netflix.
number six, God, that sounds quite high given everything else, doesn't it? I mean, maybe they know it's just incredibly bad, and they're just happy for people to tune in anyway. Because the tone of it is, I don't know whether it's something about California, and the greatest respect to Californians, but there's a sort of sincerity bypass, isn't there, with the whole thing?
Absolutely. I mean, any series, love Meghan, that starts with Meghan dressed in a beekeeper's outfit with a guy who's a beekeeper, whose name I actually did take down. Brandon Organ, I think, or something like that. He looks like he should have been in James.
Brandon
Yeah,
Organ.
that's nice. She should have been in James Taylor's band in the 70s. And she's speaking about we have to speak to the bees in a low tone. I don't think it
And
gets much
that
smugger
was,
than that.
yeah, but what a weird sort of opening that was. I mean, I didn't really get it at all. It's such a slow, um, oozy opening, and really with that soundtrack, sort of immediately put me to sleep. It made me think of Nigella Lawson's shows and the sort of jazz and sort of late night music that you get on that, where she invites guests around and they eat on the patio, going, "Gosh, what are we doing here? Oh God, that's right, we're here by Nigella Lawson."
Yes,
But
I'm a friend of Alan
um,
Yentog, don't you know, kind of thing. There must be a special place
yeah.
where they get the music from for these shows, and it must be the same kind of factory that does those slowed down songs for John Lewis Christmas commercials.
But also, it's because no one's really saying anything of any interest, are they? Really? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's just boring. I think that's the bottom line for me.
making candles. I mean, it was like a sort of children's program, and this fellow Daniel Martin, was he the makeup artist from Suits or something? I think she was going back through her contacts book. Oh, this guy'll turn
Yeah,
out.
but they're very close because, as she points out, her children, who are often spoken about but never seen in the program, my children call him Uncle Daniel, which
I
was
know that was
nice.
sort of
And
slight stick in the mouth, wasn't it?
well, and I mean, the whole lineup is full of people that. I mean, I'm just thinking, who have I heard of? I think the only person I'd heard of was Mindy Kaling, who was.
Yeah, Mindy Kaling she was sort of interesting in a way because she sort of she gave the appearance of someone who didn't really know why she was there, and then she folded her arms while she was being poured bubbly, which seemed completely un-American to me in the show. Someone actually drinking.
Yeah, and she did
So
actually
that was
comment and say this is a bit early for me to be drinking, didn't she? And I did notice, but the bottle was actually Taittinger as opposed to a bottle of prosecco from Aldi for 4.99.
was it? And I did make me think it won't be long before we've got Chateau Harry and Meghan. I mean that'll be the next thing, won't it? Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you see her, going through the fields of berries where she can make her jam, which of course you'll be able to buy, and all this smugness about, the children say, "Oh, Mama's making preserves again." It's
I know this preserves. What's your favourite preserve? Oh my God. Where does this come from? But she redefined jam. Is that the correct definition for jam? That was the other thing.
well,
Was that little interesting sort of nugget that she gave out
Well,
there? But
possibly. I mean, but I have to say, as a person who does watch the occasional cookery program and who does cook, I thought she looked competent in the kitchen, and I felt she knew what she was talking about. Well, even though maybe she
I
may have
mean,
not have done, but she looked competent, and I thought that was good. Yeah, that was good.
yeah, she knew how to turn on a cooker and open the fridge door, didn't she? That
Well,
was
boy,
quite
can
good.
this woman chop, 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 chop.
Yeah, the show's going to end up the same way, isn't it? But I sort of wonder what 8 episodes would be like. I mean, I got most of the way through the second episode, and I just gave up on it. I couldn't really. It was either going to put me to sleep or make me slightly sick. I mean, one of the two. I mean, it's not the approach you want from a TV program,
Well,
is it?
it is very soporific, I mean, and it's beautifully shot. It's not Meghan's real house. And there were kind of references to, I think Mindy Kaling said, "Oh, I want to go and stay in your real house." Uh,
Yeah, I think that's the disappointment. I mean, the label they give it is reality TV, but it's not actually reality TV because we're not getting the reality of the family. Here's someone really wanting. This is the reality show that we would film. Want full access to the family, the
mm,
house, the downstairs loo. I mean, everything. We want all the dirt, but we got no dirt. What was the only thing we got that was a vaguely interesting? I thought was the stuff about her name,
mm.
which is just bizarre. That was another bizarre moment, wasn't it?
I mean, Harry does appear at the end, or H as she calls him, and he reveals that he really likes salt, which frankly is worth anyone's Netflix subscription. And she says that H is a really good cook. Uh,
Oh
Hurrah for all
God,
that. But
it's the revelations, isn't it? But she's Meghan Sussex now, so she's dumped. She's no longer the Duchess. The Duchess has been dumped.
maybe they think that would make it kind of less relatable now she's not a duchess. I mean, I'm just feeling it's entirely relatable. I mean, one of the guests was what's they called, Delphina Figueras, who's one of her polo friends, who's a socialite, and she made dog biscuits for her dog. And then they went for a ramble in the hills, and she said, Meghan said, "Thank you for doing this with me." And it was just all full of, as you say, those Californian platitudes when she had her
Yeah,
lady friends round for a games afternoon. It was just
I
full of.
think that's the problem with it. It just doesn't feel real. I mean, it isn't
Mm,
real
mm.
anyway. There's so much that's unreal about it. But when they sat down to enjoy that, what was basically a Victoria sandwich cake, wasn't it? Uh, and a cup of mint tea or whatever it was. He and Daniel Martin said, I mean, it was the best thing he said. I feel like all of this is fake when they're looking out the hills. I thought that was a brilliant
Yeah,
line. I
yeah,
mean, you
that's it. He
probably
said, "I feel it's all green screen." And didn't she say something about the cake? It's like, well, it may not look much, but when you sort of dig deep inside, you find what it's really like. And I thought,
I mean, maybe we're looking at it in too shallow a way. Perhaps this is a much deeper program. That cake was a
well, it's
metaphor,
a
wasn't it?
metaphor for how Meghan wants to see herself. It's like, just look at me and see what I really am. And it's like, yeah, a grifter who wants to make terrible programs for Netflix. Next.
Yeah. I mean, someone on YouTube described her as a deadbeat. I haven't heard, I haven't heard that. I mean, what does a deadbeat actually mean? It sort of felt like someone who's sort of utterly useless. Next to a tramp, I would imagine.
Yeah, maybe she's going to go and live on the streets or something. Oh, I mean, that's Prince William's thing, homelessness, isn't it? But the one thing that really struck me is, apart from why did she bother and who cares, was this is a woman with no sense of humour whatsoever.
No, no, she doesn't. She's not able to make a joke against herself. I think that would be beyond her acting skills. I think really.
Absolutely. I mean, even if you've
Um,
got a comedian,
so there's no change in tone, is there?
no.
Really, that's the problem. It's sort of quite sickly, the way that she sort of narrates the whole thing. And I thought it was interesting the way that they brought Steadley in the crew to are they going to introduce them as the sort of really interesting people as the documentary goes on?
Well, yeah.
because there's no real sort of meat. Does she? I mean, she cooks some bacon, but there's no real meat in the show, is there?
No, there isn't. Yeah, that bacon looked quite nice actually. It made me fancy a bacon sandwich with the bread fried in the bacon fat. But so maybe it has inspired me in a way. But
Yeah, well, I thought the bacon was quite shocking, really. I mean, bacon's been outlawed for years. I thought that was a note of controversy. I was
yeah, we'll
delighted.
have to say pretty, if I was the Daily Mail, I'd say she was promoting ill health by frying bacon in that amount of fat. But
Yeah, with all those nitrates, goodness me. I mean, I hope they're not putting them in the garden or anything.
But I mean, it was in
Um,
the first episode. The way she was saying she likes to prepare the room for her guests, so she made them personalised bath salts and some corn on the cob, and she poured some peanut butter pretzels into another bag. And I
oh,
thought,
yeah, so
this is great. She could be running an Airbnb.
and yes, with a tour of the raspberry patch or whatever. Yeah, yeah. To begin, I mean, yeah, that would sort of if you turned up there for a night or something, that would scare the living daylights out of you. You'd think she was a serial killer or something. Because she's sort of lavishing so many useless things upon you.
Mm.
That half a candle. I mean, it just just weird, isn't it? Really, I don't know how I don't know how anyone's conceived it this way. It's as though there isn't a producer at all of any note.
Well, it's just a bit all over the place because not only is she cooking, she's obviously making candles, and there's quite a there's a little bit where she talks about floristry as well, and she's doing quite a lot with peonies. Again,
Forestry. I think forestry would
forestry,
be more
yeah, yeah. She's
interesting.
got her and Elon Musk with a chainsaw on a Montecito estate. Can you imagine that? I'd watch that. But
But then,
sorry,
yeah, then she's sort of trying to make out that she's sort of roughing it by not having anybody to do its children's parties with her. That was quite funny, wasn't it?
God, when she was
Yeah, the woman I hired does. She's looking as if why are you looking after your own children at their own birthday
Yeah, and when
party?
she says, and I found this thing, it's a balloon inflator, which is cheap and cheerful, which is the only time you'll see anything on that program which is cheap and cheerful. Um,
Yes, indeed.
it's
I mean, do you think we're talking about the royal family? I mean, they will be absolutely delighted by this program because there's nothing, well, one, there's nothing harmful, no revelations, two, and it's going to sort of confirm that they really don't have a sort of career ahead of them on TV.
No, I mean, I'm just wondering how. I mean, I haven't checked, which is very unprofessional of me, how this has gone down in the States, because I'm assuming that people might like this kind of thing more in America than they do here. It's sunny
Yeah,
and
they may do a little bit, but I mean that's not reflected. The Rotten Tomatoes figure would be,
mm,
90%. I mean, if they got that, it'd be a completely different documentary. God knows what would be happening in that. Um, they may do that tone of lifestyle programs. You probably get there. The cooking programs are different as
mm.
well. But it was a sort of an overwrought and fussy Nigella Lawson style. I
Well,
thought
very much
really.
so. And I mean, I like Nigella because she's very beautiful and, she knows it with a raised eyebrow bit. But there's just there's a bit of sauce there. There's lots of personality and there's a wit and there's a real proper knowledge of food in depth, when she
Yeah,
goes traveling.
absolutely.
She's witty, but she's very serious about the food.
Yeah, I mean, whereas you think with Meghan that she's discovered this stuff yesterday
Mm.
or the day before,
Which you
and
probably
she's a
have.
bit of she's a bit of a fraud. But the food sort of looked. If you were sort of brought in off the street and you were quite hungry, the food looked okay, didn't
Yeah,
it?
I mean, I like the bit where she was making a rainbow fruit platter for the children. And it's like, yeah, that's not what most children want to eat. Do something interesting with chicken nuggets, Megan.
Yeah, no, the children will be running for the hills, the local hills, won't they? If they
Exactly.
see that
Don't
stuff.
make me eat those preserves, mummy. They will cry. Yes.
I'm not going round to the Sussexes again.
Yeah, they made me eat star-shaped sandwiches with hemp seeds on the top. Oh.
Yeah, so do we think that they'll be watching this in Clarence House? I don't know, or wherever the king hangs out. Is he Buckingham
I think
Palace, of
it's
course?
Clarence because I think Buckingham's kind of close for repairs, isn't it? But
Yeah,
as you say,
and the Queen will enjoy
yeah,
it.
the Queen. You know what? I think Camilla would probably have a good laugh about this, as she has a fag, watching this, thinking,
Yeah,
"Bloody hell, Charles! Look at this." I think it's. I mean, I'm pleased they're trying to make their own money. It's all lovely, but I think the Netflix viewers have been, as they don't say in America, mugged off.
yeah. I mean, I immediately went to look to see if they still receive any money from us, and they don't
Mm,
receive any money, so they can spend their money on what they like,
mm.
really. And I think there is a danger of totally ruining what brand there is. I mean, it's a sort of how bulletproof is this brand? Can it go on sort of getting huge fees for things, or is it has it been sort of hold below the waterline? I
Well, I
mean,
think it probably has because let's face it, look at the response to Harry's incredible Netflix series about polo.
yes. God, why haven't we had more things about
More
polo?
things about polo, more things about what rich people like to do in their spare time. Um, it's
Yeah, it's got the timing. It's the timing is all wrong for this as
mm,
well. I mean, you never know when to put programs out, but what's going on in the world in one way or another, it's not the sort of diversion you want, is it?
no,
Really?
I mean, what is there to say about polo? The only person we want to hear talk about polo is Jilly Cooper's riders, because
Yeah, absolutely. That's the final word
that's
on
the
it, isn't
final
it?
word.
Basically.
We don't want to hear about what's her name. I did write down Delphina Figueras and her friends. We don't care about them and their ponies and that they travel around the world and their dogs with. It is all a bit let them eat delicious lemon sponge cake.
Yeah, and who ever heard of honey lemon cake anyway? Do that is
I
that
think that I think
is that
that's a thing. I think that's a thing. But I could tell people how to make my delicious lemon and raspberry cake, but nobody would want a Netflix series of that. Not yet, anyway.
what about sort of revelations that she was wearing Zara? Was that a big revelation to you?
What's she wearing, Zara? Zara Phillips,
I think
draped
Zara
around her
Phillips
shoulders. Yeah. Well, that's smashing. I'm very pleased for her.
sort of slumming it.
Well,
Um,
but I
I,
mean,
I think it's interesting.
presumably though, that was a deal. That was a product placement.
Oh, it's clever. I didn't even see that, you
Mm.
know. Um, I think it's interesting that Channel 5 have got I guess we'd call it a spoiler in the TV business, a documentary going out on Saturday describing Harry and Meghan's American nightmare, question mark. I mean, is this the start of the nightmare? I mean, it possibly could be the first episode in it.
Well, I mean,
I mean, even,
if Netflix aren't going to follow this up with any other productions, and and Spotify have already pulled the plug on her Archetypes
pod,
podcast, what will they
yes.
have left to do?
Well, they'll just have to open the Real House up and do the reality show that we all want,
Mm,
or another complete and utter moan about the British royal family. That I mean, that's got to be on the cards, hasn't
mm.
it? Just go for controversy.
Well, I mean,
I
but
mean,
they already do that with the Oprah interview. I mean, how many bombshells can you drop about the royals?
well, all Harry needs is another book, doesn't he?
Mm.
Just another book, and then that makes for a documentary, and you've got viewers again,
I mean, he
or a court trial. Any of these. I think he's settled everything, hasn't
I
he?
think pretty much. I mean, he's also involved with some kind of commercial mental health organization in the States where he's some kind of advisor. So, I mean, he's being, he
Right.
does have some kind of job. But I just don't know what they're going to do next. I mean, this is, it's so boring if you can't, and it's 40 minutes worth of boring.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't really have any structure to it. This is why I say is it impossible, and we've said this before, big celebrities to actually produce them in any sort of original way. I mean, why didn't we have a talking to the camera a bit more or something, anything just to mix up the approach to the documentary,
Mm.
because there was just too much chopping and stirring, wasn't there?
Absolutely. And the thing is, yeah, it's nice to see what she's made. And presumably there'll be a spin off cookbook or something, or a website or what have you. But
I do hope so.
yeah, I can see. But what she says is not interesting. And when she has the guests on, they're just going, "Oh, you've been so supportive. You're a wonderful friend." And she says things like, "I used to work in a donut shop in Los Angeles when I was a kid," and I just thought, I want more of this kind of stuff.
Yes, that's better. That's better. But you have to. I suppose you could argue that we do sort of know everything about these people anyway. So
Yeah.
what this is,
What more is
yeah,
there to say?
where
I mean, the thing is, um, what maybe what she should do next is, and here's a thought, because with these celebrities, it's always about them. What I'd like to see is maybe go out and interview some other people who are outside your
yes, yeah.
social circle. Go to San Francisco and talk to the homeless.
What about the new sort of Anne and Nick? What about a morning chat show
Oh
in
my
LA?
God, that's a great idea.
That's what they need. They needed their own chat show. That's where it's going, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and because she's got people that nobody really knows on this show, maybe they could bring in some of their real Hollywood friends. Um,
Well, yeah. Oh, yes. All their friends with sort of incomprehensible names. Let's have them for sure. Kick it off with that. Have a sort of zoo of really weird people. The polo players, the sort of orchard manager. I mean, I don't
yeah, the man
know.
in charge of jam production, or sorry, preserve production. Um, but
I could call it preserve, couldn't you?
yeah, a wildlife preserve. You can make a jam with giraffes in it or something. Anyway, um,
Because there's only acting really left for Megan, isn't there? I mean, she's quite a good actress. I mean, I was watching bits of Suits about a month ago for some
hmm,
reason. I think I'd been knocked on the head or something.
people, I think producers would probably quite like to have her in something as long as it wasn't too controversial. She wouldn't do it if it was too
Yes, yeah,
controversial.
maybe that's going to be difficult. Well, they're stuck with the chat show. Then we'll leave them with the chat show, and hopefully we won't see them again. No, that's terrible. I mean, but they're sort of being tried in the court of the sort of audience, of the global audience, which is savage, really, isn't it? And once you get condemned, I don't know where do you go?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. If you put yourself out on this level, you do it. You should expect to get criticism. Um, but
Yeah, but we're judging the beauty on the inside, though.
oh
That's what she kept.
God, yeah, that's what it's got to be, hasn't it? And all this female support, and having millionaires on who've got their own skin ranges. It
Yeah,
if you want to, if you want to be seen as being, part of the people, and you want the general public to follow you, then having polo players and millionaires and stuff like that on your show isn't really going to win you the support of the people. I mean, I think the closest she gets to that
yeah.
is when she has um, a chef on who makes. Here we are. What's his name? Ramon Velasquez, who's a local chef who teaches her to make ceviche. Um,
Oh, right. That's
That
fish,
is
isn't it?
that is your that is your raw fish in
That
lemon
is your
juice.
uncooked
Yeah,
fish.
that is your raw. Yeah, save on the electric bills. But he was the nearest to a real person I kind of saw on the program.
I think the problem is that when you are genuinely rich and they're still worth a fortune, people want to see the money, don't they? They want to see the cash and what they've spent it on. They don't just want to see you sort of mooching around in a raspberry patch and,
No,
and looking out
you're
at the
you're
hillside.
right,
So
David, because look at the slew of programs that Channel, everywhere. It's how the rich live. On Channel 5, Josie Gibson flying around the world first class. Television and the audiences clearly seem to want these programs about the lifestyles of the rich.
yeah, so they're completely divorcing that side of their life. I mean, unless they're not living it. I mean, you really want to see her going for a coffee somewhere on, whatever it is,
Mm,
Boulevard,
mm.
and and having her friends for lunch and stuff like that, which you get on the normal reality shows, not um, not honey lemon cake and frittata.
Well, I mean, the thing is that there's enough of all that, really, isn't there? You know, there's a food channel
Yeah,
devoted to it. There's cookery shows on now in prime time. But I think 40 minutes of this kind of thing is really stretching it.
yeah, absolutely. And before we go, we ought to sum up the state of British television in a small way in 5 minutes, because there's precious little to really get your teeth into on British television at the moment.
I mean, what are you enjoying most at the moment, David, on sort of linear British television?
Well, I enjoyed Miss Austen. I thought that was very good actually, and I enjoyed the Agatha Christie Towards Zero on the weekend.
Yeah, I think
Um,
two of those two are very much classic BBC, you know, pleasing the wide part of the viewership kind of thing.
yes, absolutely. But they were well done, well acted, nicely cast. I mean, quite involving pieces. The Austen piece was done really well. Keely Hawes, great performance. But these sort of appear to me to be um, a few examples, really, rather than holding up anything. I mean, did you catch Unforgotten? I didn't catch that.
Yes, I did. I binged it because I like it so much. But there is a but. The format is kind of, well, I find it a bit wearying. You know, you start seeing these people, and then in episode two they start getting flashbacks, and
I know it was pretty gruesome as well. It
mm,
was
mm.
flinging body parts into the marshes. Oh
Yeah,
God!
beautiful. And I guessed who did it in the first episode, which kind of spoiled it for me. And I mean, I still think the two lead performances are great, and I'm very invested in their, especially Sunny, their personal lives. But I was a little bit disappointed, just as I was with Dope Girls on BBC One, which should have been very much up my historical street. It's about women in Soho after the war, taking on men's jobs and running clubs and
Well, that should be
being
good.
violent, but being old, I just thought from the very moment it started, it was kind of noisy, and it began with a very sort of weird um, introduction with characters floating in on wings and everything. And I think it was
Yeah,
clearly a series which has been made to get a younger audience to watch drama, but
yeah, and I think Towards Zero was a sort of younger turn for an Agatha Christie as
mm,
well. A young cast, and it was sort of done in a way that wasn't obvious. The first episode was a bit slow, and I really only got into it from the second episode on. But it wasn't very well told. I think there's an emphasis on making things look younger and be a little bit sort of weird with the approach to
mm.
photography. I don't know, that mimic styles on, God, it could be anything, TikTok or YouTube, fast editing, all this sort of stuff that is an indicator to a younger audience that it's their sort of program.
Well,
But
that was interesting actually, because do you remember Mr. Loverman? That was made in 30-minute episodes, which was
yes,
shown as
but
an
I think,
hour on linear, but that was made in 30-minute episodes.
I mean, and the sound can often be, and as an older person, the sound can often be not so good, and in the dialogue and diction not so good. Are really basic things that you've got to get right these days. Otherwise, people do turn off, and there's plenty of places to go.
Mm. And I mean, elsewhere, I mean, the amount of crime on television now at the moment, I think, is at a ludicrous level. I mean, I've noticed ITV have started
Yes, there
showing
is.
what looks to be a sort of, really low rent crime program, I think, on a Monday evening at 9 o'clock. And this appetite for murder is clearly huge and clearly cheap to
It is.
make, but too much.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's too much of a genre, isn't it? I mean, what is the what is the there must be another genre for TV.
Well, I did read this week that I think some program, some quiz, some game shows being developed around the concept of, wait for this, musical chairs.
Gosh, that's normally the executives of the BBC, isn't it?
Ah, very good, Dave. But
On that note, we shall wind it up for this special episode devoted to the Sussexes and may well they continue to make these programs so we've got something to talk
Yeah,
about.
God bless them.